The other thing is it's going to add an advisory committee. And you don't have to have any board members on that advisory committee. So it's going to give you some more options. The other thing too is that it cures that problem under now our officers are required to have the titles of president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. So the Nonprofit Act, the proposed one, is going to say, go ahead and call whatever you want. I mean, if you want to call it a chair, go ahead, do it. So we think that's a good thing. And we also try to take out the stupid in the act as much as possible. So where it said before that you are required to have a list of members in alphabetical order, strike that. That makes no sense. We don't care if it's chronological order or whatever order you want, as long as you have a list of members. So again, trying to go back and make sure it makes sense for those in the trenches. So I think that's also important. If you are currently operating as a nonprofit, make sure you're complying with law. If you're giving electronic notice, if you don't have the right board members, directors on your committees, I mean, you've got to dot the I's and cross the T's, because it really is a privilege to operate as a nonprofit. And then lastly here, I'm going to go over the annual meetings. That is something that was maintained. Right now, annual meetings are required, and they will be required. Although the Model Act said, much like the LLC Act, that you don't have to, it's made, it's discretionary. After vetting this, we decided it needs to stay the same as it currently is. And so annual meetings are required. So I think that kind of wraps up my presentation. Does anyone have any questions here, or we will move on to the next speaker? Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the electronic communications and when it might come into play and what a current nonprofit might be doing and be out of compliance with current regulations?
Yes, I would love to talk about that, but Alex is going to be talking about that. And he will do a much better job than I will. So, but that will definitely be touched on if it's not asked follow-up questions to Alex. Any others? Yeah.
Since when we created this new model bylaw, we took part of what the American Bar Association recommended. Will we be able to do that if you were born before 65 or under the 65 Act? Will you be able to take parts of the new act and put them in, or will you have to go one way or the other?
So you're going to have to, so one, I'm going to want to address the timing issue. If you're an existing nonprofit, you can elect, as, hopefully if this is passed, as right away when it's effective. Or you can do this 5 years down the road. So as an existing nonprofit, you maybe want to see and wait. That's absolutely fine. So on the timing issue, that's in your guys' hands as a nonprofit. And then with regard to that second component, no, you have to decide, am I under the 1965, the hopefully 2016, or the pre-1965? And you guys as nonprofits are really responsible for making sure that you're following the law. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of this headache, because our world that we live in today is just different than 1965. So we are giving notice electronically, we are communicating electronically, and we are not dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And so that's the important thing. If you're going to stay under 1965, just be cognizant of that and make sure that you're following the law and that you don't have a chair, you have a president, things like that. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time. It's a gorgeous day out today, so we appreciate you guys being here. And next up is Paul.
seems a bit unwieldy here today. There we go.
It's just a good judge of character.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I want to thank all of you sincerely for joining us today. I know it's sunny, it's gorgeous outside, and spending time talking about nonprofits may not be the highlight of your Friday. But I do sincerely appreciate your time. As a matter of fact, as Pat mentioned earlier, just a week ago we gave a similar presentation out in Rapid City to a handful of nonprofits, as well as attorneys and some legislators. And Pat had indicated that I'm from Flandreau, which driving from Flandreau to Rapid City is truly an adventure of sorts, especially once you get past Oakoma and Murdo, and when you're driving in the dark and you're listening to really offbeat radio stations and whatnot, because all of the other radio stations that you've been listening to have just fallen away back by Chamberlain, really. But one of the stations I was listening to on the way out to Rapid I did find South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and one of the shows I was listening to is called Fresh Air. And they were interviewing this pastor who was she was born again, she was very, very devoted to her parishioners, and really enjoyed confession, and talked at length about what is confession and what does that mean and what do you get out of it. And as I began my talk out in Rapid, I gave a confession to the group of nonprofits and attorneys, and honestly, being an East River boy, I didn't think it was fair if I didn't give you a similar confession. I don't want anybody out in West River to say, well, he forgot to tell it over here on the east side. I guess I'll begin by saying my confession, which is as follows. When I went through law school back in 2000 to 2004, I was probably one of the only law students in the graduating class of 2004 who didn't have the goal of practicing law as his goal. As a matter of fact, when I drove out to Pierre and took the bar exam, I didn't plan on ever practicing law. I planned on working in nonprofits. And so when I graduated in 2004 and I took my bar exam and I got my resumes all polished and ready to go, went into nonprofits, and that's where I worked. I worked for Vera St. Luke's up in Aberdeen for a number of years, overseeing nonprofit clinics, medical practice clinics from Britain all the way up to Mobridge, handful of specialty clinics in Aberdeen, and then I got to the point where they moved me down to Flandreau, and when I got into Flandreau, I spent some time there, and again, the option came up to move, but at that point we kind of settled in and hung out my shingle, so that's how I ended up here. But even though I have not been in the nonprofit sector myself since 2009, it's still very much a part of me. It's still something that very much interests me, and I'm pleased to serve on a handful of nonprofit boards, to assist a couple of nonprofits in getting up and going. And so, if I may, as a show of hands, how many nonprofits are here today? Can you raise your hand if you work in nonprofits? That's a great show. That's great. It's kind of about the same percentage that we had out in Rapids, so I'm really excited that you're here.
Paul, do you need your program to move it up?
I think
Very good.
I'm good to go. All right, thank you, Pat. Well, the topic that I've been assigned today is actually an incredibly difficult topic to address, really, as far as reducing landmines that nonprofits face. Nonprofits face all kinds of pressures, day in and day out. Do we have enough supplies? Are we communicating appropriately? Do we have enough funds in our checkbook? Just a myriad of landmines. But as I got to putting together the presentation, I thought, where are three main areas that we consistently run into problems with in nonprofits? I think it's important for nonprofits to answer three really critical questions. Why are you here? Who do you serve? And how do you serve? Those three questions, whether it's in the form of litigation, whether it's in the form of articles in the newspaper, whether it's in the form of radio shows, or whatever have you, these three questions continue to play a pivotal role in the difficulties that nonprofits face. Why are you here? Who do you serve? How do you serve? And I often find that when we lose track of these questions, we tend to get into trouble. Now, the very first question was, why are you here? Mission statements. Okay. I assume for all of our nonprofits here, and frankly, anybody who's worked with nonprofits as a board member, whatever have you, that you have a mission statement in your nonprofit. Is that correct? You live, you eat, you breathe that nonprofit mission. Up at Avera, wherever I was, we had the same mission drilled into us day in and day out to advance the healing ministries. And they've changed up a little bit since then, but you lived that. That was your purpose. Critically important. So I'm going to try and engage a little bit of participation here this afternoon. I've got a couple mission statements up here on this slide. And don't be afraid to call them out, if you would. But our first mission statement today is, our mission is to make a positive impact in the lives and health of persons and communities by providing quality Christian services guided by Christian values. Who is that? Don't be shy. What's that? You're right, Avera. Thank you. We grant the wishes of children with life-threatening medical conditions to enrich the human experience with hope, strength, and joy.
Make a wish.
Excellent. To build healthier lives free of cardiovascular diseases and strokes.
Heart Association.
What's that? American Heart Association. Excellent. The increase in diffusion of knowledge. Excellent, excellent. We help children realize their potential and build their futures. We nurture children and strengthen communities. Anybody want a handicap on this one? Big brothers and big sisters. Celebrating animals, preventing cruelty. Humane Society, excellent. Of course, then there's the other one. To provide effective means for the prevention of cruelty to animals throughout the United States, the ASPCA. And finally, to prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors.
Red Cross.
Excellent. So I guess the question is, what is your mission statement? Again, I saw a lot of hands here from nonprofits. What is your mission statement? Now, I'm not going to ask you to yell it out loud, but I am going to do an exercise. I apologize if there's some groans out in the audience. The 30-second speech. How many of you are familiar with the 30-second speech, the concept of the 30-second speech? Okay. A couple of years ago, there was a gentleman running for Public Utilities Commission by the name of Dusty Johnson, and did a very clever little commercial where it shows him getting onto an elevator. And somebody gets on the elevator with him, and he's really only got a limited amount of time to say who he is, what he's doing, and what he's there for. And it was a very clever little commercial. He did get reelected to the Public Utilities Commission position, but of course that took a different path eventually. But what I'd ask that you do today is this. Even if you're not with a nonprofit, even if you're an attorney, you serve on a board for a nonprofit, you work with a nonprofit that has a mission, vision, or value, I would encourage you, and I'm going to set aside about 5 minutes, it's now 2 o'clock, to write out your mission, and then to engage some of your surrounding neighbors and tell them what your mission is, what your organization does, how your organization does it, who do you, why are you here, who do you serve, how do you serve. So let's begin now. It's 2:01. We'll set aside 5 minutes, and I'd encourage you to discuss your mission with some of your surrounding neighbors.
trying to do something